Why not join our podcast family? Simply click subscribe on our Seriously with Sarah Beeny Instagram bio to become a member. For around £1 a week, you'll unlock exclusive bonus clips, behind the scenes content, and other fantastic perks.
All the cool things to say were running through my head when I was like going to go up and say, I was like, I can't not go up. Tried to think of something funny and charming and cool to say, couldn't think of anything. So the best I could do was, I love you. And she went, can you stop? Please, can you stop laughing? Because I already feel pretty terrible about this in the first place.
Hello and welcome to Seriously with Sarah Beeny. Let's face it, having open and honest conversations with your family isn't always easy. But on this podcast, that's exactly what we're going to do. This week on Seriously, we're facing our greatest anxieties head on, diving into the world of obsessive fandoms and answering a listener question about family pets. So I'm back here with Billy and Charlie.
Hey everyone. Hey guys.
And Graham, again.
I thought you'd forgotten about me.
No, it's a bit of a permanent
Sitting here in
fixture.
silence. It's not much good, is it?
Anyway, today I thought we'd talk about anxiety. And so how does anxiety manifest within the family, and how can we help each other when it spills out? How do you feel? Do you feel anxiety much?
I know I definitely feel anxiety at certain points. When I'm probably at my most anxious when
you've been out the night before,
when
is
I've
what
been
you're
out the
trying
night
to say.
before.
Do you know what? I've got a friend who calls that monkeys on your back, which is when you wake up after a night out and you've been, having a good time partying, dancing, and then you wake up and think, ooh.
You're quite young to have hungover anxiety, though. When I was your age, you'd go and you'd drink too much. So not very often, of course. But you drink too much, you'd throw up, you'd kind of wake up in the morning and you get on with your day.
Yeah,
now,
I think
when I go and do that sort of thing, if I were to drink too much, I'd wake up the next day, probably wouldn't throw up, but I would just want to cry all day.
I don't want to
How pathetic is that?
I don't want to cry, but I probably do have anxiety. There is one problem with kind of the difference between your generation and my generation is you could get pissed and you could have a really fun time and you could be a bit weird and be a bit kind of strange and be a bit drunk and then wake up the next day and all there would be is a story about how you're a bit weird. Whereas there's video footage now of whoever gets a bit too drunk.
I'd love that.
Behaving pretty weird.
There would be hundreds and hundreds of videos of me just being a legend.
Yeah.
That'd be brilliant. That's why I didn't have anxiety, because I wasn't weird like you lot.
No, I think that's the thing, is when you don't have a video, you can't be confirmed as not a legend.
Well,
I agree with you, because I've had a few nights where I stayed up with my brother and we've maybe had the odd bottle of wine. And then in the morning, you kind of go, did we find world peace? I think we might have found world peace in the middle of the night. And we often reflect to each other that we should video ourselves because
Did you try it once?
No,
I
definitely
really
not.
would not try
I'm
it
not
once
going to.
because I can promise you didn't find world peace.
I once made that admission to a friend of mine, called Julia, and I said, oh no, when I'm hungover, I just want to cry. And she just looked at me and she just went, God, I just want a burger. And I thought, that's because I'm an anxious type and you're really not.
Yeah, that is probably true, isn't it? But I do think that everybody has a sense of anxiety, particularly after social occasions, particularly if you've talked to lots of people and you think, oh, maybe they didn't like me. And the one thing that I would say is that lots of people think they're the only one who has that anxiety. The truth is, everybody has that anxiety. Yeah. Everybody thinks, oh gosh, should I have said that? Should I have not said that? Was that funny? Was that not funny? And, we all feel anxious before social occasions, and we all feel anxious after them, and other things, new jobs or, anxiety is part of life, isn't it?
I don't always feel anxious after social occasions. I remember somebody gave me a brilliant, brilliant piece of advice, and I don't think it was you, but I'm sure you'll correct me if it was.
Probably was.
And they said, it is almost impossible for somebody to dislike you if you really like them.
Oh, that was me, actually.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
But it's so true. It's a two-way thing, somebody making you feel good.
I think the least anxious people I know are the people who talk most openly and are least angry about things. They're the people who I know.
I don't think anxiety and anger have anything to do with each other.
No, but anger is hiding anxiety, and the best thing to do with anxiety, I know from experience, is to talk about it. Because if you go and talk to someone about it, and all the times I've been really anxious about things, I talk to a friend and say, "Oh, I'm really anxious about this," and then they point out a perfectly good reason why that's completely ridiculous, and then I think, oh, and then I'm not anxious anymore.
But you have a problem with talking to people as a general rule about your anxiety. So mum has a theory, and I remember this has gone on for 25 years, and I'm definitely
This is probably not true, by the way.
Definitely
I
not
have a
going to
feeling this
compare
is
to
going to be a
anyone else.
terrible theory, by the way,
But mum's idea of dealing with anxiety, or frankly any problem, as a general rule, so much so that we actually made a sort of mime to show when we were having an issue with something, which is to pick the carpet up, sweep it, pop the carpet back down, and then tread on it.
That is so not true. You always say this. It's absolutely
I've seen you
not
do
true.
that. I've seen you two do that a lot.
That is
You have a problem. You don't say anything. You just go.
no. That is so not true.
I was miming the carpet.
So like I'm get kind of probably a little bit anxious about the well-being of my family. I think I'm quite anxious, but I think that's quite a normal thing. I think anxious about
Is it
everyone's
weird
okay?
to check whether people are breathing when they go to sleep?
No.
Is that
I do
weird?
that a lot. I do that a lot.
I do that quite a lot. It's really bad. Do you go around checking that
Do you
people
know what happened?
I have dreams where
Laurie-
they die and I wake up crying. And I have to go
Laurie
and, like,
Laurie
I
left
can't.
his iPad in my room, and I was like, okay, it's like 10:30. He normally will have his iPad in his room, right? Because he's a bit of an iPad kid. So I was like, shit, what's happened? I had to go in. He was just listening to a talking book. He had fallen asleep listening to like an audio book, and I had to go in and check his breathing to make sure that he hadn't died, because I was worried that he had died because he hadn't come to get his iPad.
Do you know
Well, his life support machine.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you know? I think that is actually kind of weird in a way, because I think a lot of people don't worry about that. I have to admit, I have always worried about that, but I always thought that was because my mother did die. But you haven't had anyone who's died who isn't really old. So why are you all worried about it?
I don't know. Well, I guess.
Do we all worry about that?
No. To be fair, I actually did. I started it about a year and a half ago.
I think you worry. It's kind of a bit of a.
Yeah.
I think you worry a lot more when you're self-employed, because the nature of your. But there's logic to it. You have to let it go. Basically,
Okay.
It was my way of saying that you tend to get anxious when you spend more time on your own, and I do think that's true. I think that people who work in a very solitary environment, there's only a limited amount of time if you're working very hard that your brain can continue working for. That's why we always have coffee breaks and tea breaks, and, you stop for lunch and that sort of thing. But actually, if you're on your own, you tend to let thoughts run away with you. Certainly when I was in my studio every day, I would, painting, I would paint and think at the same time. And it sent me loopy. It really did. I'm much more
loopy.
I'm much more robust now. But all sorts of things have made me more robust. I think you having cancer has made me much more robust. Probably a little bit less paranoid about stuff
Good.
like that.
Another good thing about it. That's good.
That is good.
Can I ask you something? Do you have coping mechanisms for anxiety? So I have anxiety in a way that no one else in the family has anxiety, but I'm pretty good at swallowing it down. I've just been asked by Jonathan, the producer, if I could elaborate on that. The truth is, I don't really want to elaborate on it.
No, I don't think you
because
should. He had a misspent youth.
I'm a little
That's
bit
it.
ashamed, but there's a whole load of things that I can't really deal with. So I will occasionally get off the tube because I'm getting claustrophobic, because my brain is going, I hate flying now. And I flew, my dad worked for an aircraft business, so we flew everywhere when I was a kid. Now, take off in the air.
Basically,
Is that why we
Dad
always
had,
drove
yes, that's why we had to drive on
yeah.
every flipping holiday.
every holiday? Is that why we never went anywhere other than France?
Yeah, that is why.
Are you being serious, Dad?
Literally, yes.
We didn't fly for 5 years, and I dressed it up that it was because I was an environmentalist. Actually, I was just scared of getting on an airplane.
Okay, so it was longer than that. Basically, Dad had a slightly misspent teenage youth, and it gave him a little bit of paranoia, which is a good lesson for you to learn, and not having a misspent youth, so you end up the same.
Yeah, I'm sort of trying to think about coping mechanisms. It always just comes down to one thing for me. And listen, I'm not saying that this is the same for everybody, but if you can talk about stuff and choose the person that you talk to, I think that's probably how we've been married for 25 years. Because if you talk about your anxieties to someone and they just sort of look at you and give you a sort of an emotional slap, say something funny, take the piss, and then just go, anyway, right, what are we having for supper? That was the sort of thing that I liked. And Mum was quite sane. It's a little bit disconcerting hearing you talking about your anxiety. I didn't think you had any anxiety.
Oh, I have quite a lot of anxiety, but I sort of like to... The problem is, I do think, which I might be wrong, and this is, I'm sure every therapist would say this is completely not the right thing to do. I think, for me, my anxieties, if I give in to them, they can take over. And so I have had moments on the tube where I think, I can't breathe, I can't get out. And if I sort of open that box, I can get to a point where I feel really lightheaded and I can't. I've driven to hospital thinking I'm having a heart attack because I've had what I recognise as a panic attack in situations.
Do you think that one of the reasons that we might be such an anxious family is because of our sweep it under the carpet policy?
No. Oh.
Yeah, maybe that is what it is.
Oh. I think there's different levels of anxiety, isn't there? There's anxiety which is sort of instinctive, like are you scared of small spaces, scared of heights, scared of spiders, which is kind of logical because some are poisonous. And then the stuff we're bombarded with in terms of, the news is now constant. And I was thinking about the news nowadays is, it's pretty kind of non-stop and it likes bad news. So if you actually look at lots of feeds, terrible things are happening all the time because that's what they like to feed you. So,
But if you're fighting for people's attention, then you have to whip yourself up into a frenzy because, if you just have a normal newspaper headline saying, I don't know.
Steve went to the shops today.
Yeah. Steve stubs toe on the way to... No, because that's just a nothing story.
But a positive story isn't very good. There's a lovely website, actually, just so you know, if anyone wants to look at it, it's called Positive News, which I follow on Instagram. It's lovely. It's got lovely stories. But most newspapers don't write that sort of thing anymore. And or most feeds don't do that because not many people want to read that. They found a really brilliant environmental solution for, sorting out. There's really brilliant breakthroughs all the time. There's really brilliant breakthroughs with recycling plastic, but that's not very good news. What they want to feed people is the fact that there's a sort of catastrophic disaster, not solutions.
Do you think there's more anxiety going about now because of social media and being online and stuff?
Yes, I do.
I just think people are doing less.
I think inactivity leads to more anxiety, or maybe not inactivity, but
Isolation, I think.
Well, it's the quantity of... I actually think anxiety comes from the quantity of stuff going into your mind. I think the problem with social media is you're constantly bombarded and you don't have time to compute those thoughts and pop them into the right boxes of how you feel, because it's just you haven't got time to process anything.
Do you think that I've got a proposition that it would never be able to work. But do you think of Monday and Tuesday, the entire day, no internet was allowed, no kind of connection to any form of social media or anything happened? Do you reckon over the course of kind of 6 months, people would start getting excited for Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah. I genuinely do, actually. I think you're bombarded. To tell you one of the things that I think is really hard is you want to listen to some music, you go to your phone, you see an email, you see a text message, you think, oh, I must deal with that, or the WhatsApp, or something you've got to do. You can never get away from it. If you want to look at your diary, it's all in there, all jumping at you.
That is
you
the
can't
problem.
get away. You can't have a moment of just doing one thing.
And I have a massive problem where, so we're on Instagram and TikTok a lot, because that's kind of the way that we're promoting ourselves as a band. That's what we're doing. But every time you open the app, it first goes on to a load of scrolling that immediately catches you.
Designed to.
Yeah, I mean, it's designed to immediately catch you. So I find it's almost impossible to click off and do the work on TikTok and then not watch the video that's the best video that you could possibly want to watch.
Yeah, it's grabbing, it's throwing too many things at you.
Do you think we're normal with the levels of anxiety that we have?
I think so.
Do we all think we're all normal?
I think
everyone think they're normal.
Most people I speak to have anxiety. I think anxiety can be quite useful sometimes. I mean, look, if you've got anxiety about something that you can change, you kind of have two options, and that's either kind of bury your head and kind of worry, continue worrying about it, or you can go, hold on, no, I can control this, I can change this. So I think that kind of drives you.
I think the thing with anxiety is that you should focus on the things that you can do something about and work really hard, and the things you can't control, talk to people about it, and sharing those anxieties maybe will make them not so bad. Anxiety thrives in isolation. So just by opening the door and sharing your anxieties with other people, it will lessen it. I think that's the thing to remember.
After the break, we're going to be talking about parasocial relationships. So, do any of you know what a parasocial relationship is?
I have absolutely no idea.
I think it's a parasitic relationship.
A parasocial relationship is a one-sided emotional connection someone forms with a public figure, like a celebrity, influencer, or even podcast host.
Like
you feel
me?
like you know them personally, even though you've never met. The term was actually coined back in 1956 by two sociologists studying how audience reacted to TV and radio hosts, right? But Gen Z have brought it back in a big way, especially on TikTok and YouTube, where creators share so much of their lives that fans start to feel it close to, like, their close friends, basically. So, like, you have an influencer, say, sharing their day in the life so much, and so doing that so regularly and doing that so much that you kind of feel like you know them.
Isn't that sort of historically the price of fame, though? People have always felt that they've known you.
And the thing is with social media now is that, it's quite different. Say back in the 70s or the 60s, 70s, 80s, probably even 90s, is that it's like you could have an air of mysteriousness to you. You could be like, okay, right, they're very famous, they're playing on MTV, but I don't know what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. I don't know what they're doing. Whereas now, people are doing day in the life. But Central C's just posted a vlog of his day getting ready for going on his UK tour. And I'm like, well, there's zero mystery.
So I think what's interesting about that is that the amount of content that people put out now gives the illusion of the fact that you know everything about their life. But, Central C didn't put out, he woke up and the dog had done a poo on the carpet and he had to clear it up. He
had piles and stuff. He won't put that in.
My point is that if somebody's posting a day in their life on their social media, it is an edited version of their life. It's what they choose to put out.
Yeah, it's a fabrication, but I don't think that makes a difference.
No, I think it does in a way, because I think the difference is that when you only saw Marilyn Monroe in films and in posters and occasionally maybe on a photo somewhere, you didn't think you knew what she was up to. Whereas now, if there was Marilyn Monroe, you'd have a picture of her bathroom and which slippers she was wearing, and you'd think you knew all about her. So I think there's probably more of an illusion of the fact that you know everything about someone. You know, I'd never post a picture of me swearing at you because you haven't put your plate in the dishwasher, because that wouldn't be such a good post.
Maybe you've admitted it now. All those people that thought you were lovely the whole time suddenly realise that you're not.
I think I've been really quite lucky because I started out on telly a long time ago and there wasn't as much that you had to post. You just did the odd photo shoot or something and then telly, and then you made the telly. But I think there's more exposure that you have to you have to tell more about yourself. I don't think anyone watches our shows, if I'm honest, and thinks the only thing we do is make pink elderflower cordial. However, we have made pink elderflower cordial because everything in it, we do all of those things.
Yeah.
It's just that they're not the only things we do.
Okay, I'm really sorry. If you don't like the attention with people coming and saying hello and being nice to you and saying, I love what you do, go and get a job in a factory.
I completely.
If
If people are going to support you living the life, you know, you've had a great life. You've worked really bloody hard. I'm not pretending you haven't, but you've had a great life for 25 years, doing a job that you love, meeting so many new people, you know, broadening your horizons. You said you've kind of loved it.
I love it. I love
You know,
my
people
job.
come up and they are
gorgeous.
appreciating and expressing to you the appreciation that they have for the work that you do. I think it's lovely that people
and
do
I
that.
am so-
When people come up to us as a band, which weirdly is happening more and more now, and go, I love your song, I'm coming to see you at this gig, you know, I think it's flipping great. Can I take a selfie? Yes, of course you can, because you're the people that might mean that we can do what we would like to do for a career. And if I'm going to get shitty about that, then don't come and watch me and don't listen to our music.
I do want to say though as well that because I actually do agree. I think that, you know, if you're going to have a career or try and pursue a career somewhat in the public eye, you need to be aware that part of that is having people that like you and having fans, and they're going to want to come and say hello to you, as I have done when I've seen someone that I like, probably really irritating because they're just trying to have a nice time, and me coming up and going, oh my God, I think you're amazing, is probably not what they wanted to do, but I do it anyway, and they're always very lovely. But I think there is a bit of like another side, because so, you know, people are talking about it online. You know, this YouTuber's my comfort person, or I'm in a parasocial relationship with Harry Styles. And sometimes it's harmless, right? And even comforting. But sometimes the line between real and imagined connection gets a bit blurry. Because I just wanted to bring up Chapel Roan quickly.
She's a singer.
She got famous really, really quickly. Basically, she's recently been quite vocal about keeping fans at a distance. And so she basically said, I don't care that abuse and harassment and stalking, you know, and all of that is a normal thing to do to people who are famous. She's saying it's weird how people think they know a person because they see them online, or you listen to the art that they make.
I find that really, really annoying, because if someone listens to our songs, I'd expect them to definitely be like,
Know a bit more about you.
know a bit more about me and kind of have an insight into my life, which is what I'm hoping that the insight into my life is going to be relatable to their life. And then hopefully it might bring them some comfort or something.
There is another argument, which is, look, of course if you're in the public eye, you need to be grateful and thankful to your fans. And I think you should probably say hello to every single one of them if you get there. But then also, you know, if you look at someone like Princess Diana, who died because she was being chased by the paparazzi because she couldn't escape. That's no longer, you know, in a position where it's like, oh, well, you know, she should have just got, you know, she was trying to escape them and she died because she was being chased by paparazzi cars. So there is a level to it.
There is.
And for Chapel Roan, actually thinking about it, she's a young girl in the spotlight. So with things like stalkers and not being able to leave the house without people being there when you're a young girl in the spotlight, that might be quite difficult. I can say one thing though, and that is if you become a fan of the Entitled Sons, a fan of Sarah Beeny, or a fan of this podcast, I can promise you I will not be afraid of leaving the house, and I will ask for a selfie with you, because you have been very kind enough to listen to me waffle on like this.
It seems very strange that we're kind of projecting this one-sided relationship. So last year we released a song called These Days, which we wrote because Mum was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was our response to that. And I think it probably did mean that people had more of an insight into how we felt about something. But we also got a lot of support online because we wrote the song, and it gave people an understanding, and we took quite a lot from a relationship with people that we'd never met before, who were going and sending messages to us going, my mum's just been diagnosed with breast cancer. My wife's been diagnosed with breast cancer, and we had kids as well having that conversation with us. And I think it was pretty beneficial for us as well to have a relationship that kind of became a very equal relationship, even though they came to us through the fact that they had heard our music. Does that make any sense at all?
It does.
Yes.
It really does. And the other thing is, as a singer that's trying to get myself out there, every single positive comment online that someone tries to make about us as a band, about us writing music, about my voice, about your piano playing, it really doesn't matter, about your bass playing. Why are you laughing? That's every single positive comment encourages us to get up and get on with the next thing. So if it wasn't for the people that are encouraging us and getting excited and listening to our music, we wouldn't want to do it.
I think maybe the point is that 99.9% of people are absolutely lovely, and them supporting you and encouraging you is why you carry on doing anything in the arts at all. And then there are the odd person out there that is just not a very nice person. Yeah. And unfortunately, with social media and with the way the world is now, those people also are out there. But you have to get it into perspective.
When talking about parasocial relationships, though, it's not really talking about like someone being grumpy when they ask for a selfie. It's more talking about kind of people that think they know everything about you, and then they cross boundaries from that. I think there are boundaries that when people cross, they can be quite frightening. So coming up and asking for a selfie is a totally normal thing to do. And of course, that's totally cool. But then following someone down the street, stalking someone, finding out where they live, turning up to their house, that's weird. And that's, I think, crossing a boundary. So we had an incident where someone kind of overstepped a boundary. And it probably would have been okay if it wasn't for the fact that, Rafi and Laurie, two of our brothers are young. They were really young.
They were really young.
So suddenly that's not as cool. And I think
it was a bit more worrying.
It's more worrying. And I think that also that's something that you have to take into consideration when you're talking about, if you've got a young female artist, that can be, it's not a million miles away from that. And I think if someone's behaving weirdly or and they really overstepping a boundary.
Especially if you don't have a support network of people that you can really trust and feel safe with.
I think the vulnerability comes from thinking, if you're in a public space and someone happens to see you and comes and talks to one of you, I don't feel as protective about you. I only get really, really, well, there's only been one situation where I've been a little bit really not very happy about it. And that's when someone found out where you were and went to that place, and it wasn't a public place. So it's not a public space. They kind of work it out and then are there where you're meant to be in a private space. I think people in the public eye are allowed to have private spaces, and those private spaces they should feel safe in.
There's also a side which is that famous people are people as well. And so, if you walk up to them and ask for a selfie or interrupt them when they're having dinner, they might have just broken up with their girlfriend. Their mum might have just been, I don't know, let's say their mum might have been diagnosed with cancer and they're there, or they're having a really shit day. And if someone walks up to them and asks for a selfie and they, no one can be on form 100% of the time. But again, I think that's a kind of a line that you need to navigate, because although you're not going to be happy all of the time, that is also part of your job, I think, to to kind of go, right, well, oh, I'm hungover, or I'm in a bad mood, or I'm this. But I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for these people. So I also need to respect that as well.
Okay, all right. So who's everyone's person that they would struggle to maintain boundaries with the most? Like a celebrity or an actor? Or
Well, interestingly, but you and the Waltons, I reckon you've got a bit of a parasocial relationship with the Waltons, I reckon.
I do a bit, but I don't want to meet them.
You have a parasocial relationship with every single television program you've ever watched, I think.
Yes, but I don't
Little
want to
House
see
on the
it.
Prairie, you thought that was real life. The
Poldark?
Waltons.
Yeah.
I feel like
Honestly,
you'd be a bit over familiar with Poldark, maybe.
Oh, yeah, I definitely would. He's beautiful.
What about Aragon from the Lord of the
Oh,
Rings?
he's beautiful as well. Absolutely gorgeous.
Are there any other people that you would kind of, if you met them in the flesh, in real life, that you would struggle to be able to not go up, or you think you'd regret not going up and kind of...
So
I think Robert Plant I would
have
harass.
to, yeah,
I think I'd harass
I wouldn't
Robert
harass
Plant.
him. I'd just go. I'd be embarrassed, but I would still go up and go, sorry, you're Robert Plant. I've just got to, do. I mean, maybe just touch your shirt or something. Maybe is that overstepping the boundary though?
Yeah, that is overstepping the boundary.
I thought it'd be in and out really quick. Just touch the shirt. I'm off now.
I once met a pretty famous celebrity at a bar in London. I did say hello, and it was very embarrassing.
Why
It
was
was
it
Margot
embarrassing?
Robbie.
I love her, and I think she's amazing. And I thought that I would regret it if I didn't go up to her and say that I thought she was amazing. But then ultimately, all the cool things to say were running through my head when I was like going to go up and say, I was like, I can't not go up. Tried to think of something funny and charming and cool to say. Couldn't think of anything. So the best I could do was, I love you. And she went, can you stop? Can you stop laughing? Because I already feel pretty terrible about this in the first place. Please can you not put that in actually? Because I've just realised I am really embarrassed by it. And when I eventually meet her, I'm going to have to pretend that
Wasn't you?
and marry her.
You met my brother.
Yeah,
You can say.
you met my twin brother, weird guy.
Sadly, we've had to lock him away now.
We've had to lock him. He had to go, unfortunately.
After the break, we're going to take a listener question. Right, so this week, Siobhan has asked all four of us the question. Love the podcast. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much for listening. I think pets make a family. Do you agree? On the TV, you seem to have a lot of pets. How many do you have? How have you coped with losing pets as a family? And how did you break it to the boys when they were younger?
I was furious about that.
Which bit?
Furious
About
what?
you pretending that Daisy died from something other than the fact that we drove over her in the car. Then do you know how I found out?
How?
Do you know how I found out? From a family friend going, because obviously she was hit by a car. And I went, no, she just went ill and then died in her bed.
Daisy was
Sorry, guys. That actually vexed me so much.
So we did have a family dog who I loved very much called Daisy, which is what I would have called a daughter if I had a daughter, but I didn't. So we got a miniature dachshund who was called Daisy, and then when she was about 12, we moved to the countryside. She didn't like the countryside much because she had really bad hay fever. So
and really small legs, and running through a field for her was like dragging her body along the ground.
yeah, she was much better as a city dog, to be honest. Anyway,
Our dog had hay fever.
yeah,
That's
terrible
the
hay
level
fever. It was
that
really
we're talking about.
We
It
need to
was
do
really
some
awful.
reverse breeding there, don't we, to get them back to kind of wolf form
Yeah.
at that point.
Anyway,
She
it
was the
gorgeous.
furthest thing from a wolf you could possibly imagine.
Yeah, she wasn't a wolf, but she was gorgeous. So Graham was going with the boys to collect a buggy when we just moved down here. And it's a lot of upheaval because we just moved here from London. It was a beautiful sunny day and he'd reversed out of the house and then driven off with the trailer to go and collect like a farm buggy with the children. They're really excited. And then I was inside doing some paperwork or something. And then I heard a delivery man turn up it was a DPD driver. And I came out of the house and he said, I've got a parcel. And I said, oh, thank you. And as I looked down between us, there was Daisy, who who was massively, definitely dead and had clearly been run over. And anyway, it was a horrendous story, really, because the DPD driver looked down and in absolute horror, as though we had sort of run over dogs around the garden all the time, just went, "What is that?" And I hadn't realised and fell to my knees and started sobbing and trying to sort of pick up Daisy. There was tears pouring down my face. And he was so sweet, this lovely, lovely driver who I'm really fond of. He looked down at me and just went, "Do you want a hug?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I do." And so he knelt down the other side of Daisy, and then we sort of hugged over Daisy. And then for a minute, I had an out-of-body experience where I thought, if someone else saw this, I sort of got terrible hysterics about it because I was crying and hugging the DPD driver over the corpse of my dog. And anyway, he kind of looked at me as I was laughing and crying, and he said, "Do you want me to take her to the vet?" And I went, she was like really completely dead. Anyway, I said, no, you go. And he said, "I need to do my rounds." So I said, "Yes, you go." And he said, "What are you going to do now?" And I said, "I'm going to find a spade, I think, and dig a hole." I think that's what anyway, so then of course I rang my brother because I couldn't ring Graham because he was in the car with you and on loudspeaker and I didn't know what to do. So I rang my brother and just went, "Daisy's dead." And he went, "She was very old." I went, "Yes, but I'm digging a hole," which was really hard because it was August and I couldn't dig a hole. So I was trying to dig a hole. I thought, I've got to bury her before you get back. And then when you got back, I always remember this, you got back and I said she had a heart attack and died. And that was very sad. But I told my brother, obviously, because...
In truth, we don't know that she didn't have a heart attack and die, and I might have just driven over her when she'd already died.
That could have been it.
Okay, listen, she was so old that, I mean, I think I drove over her by reversing. That I was not driving very fast, and
she was
didn't get out of the
asleep,
way.
I think, under the tyre.
But anyway, that was a very long-winded story to say that basically mum and dad both lied to us, but everyone else found out other than us four boys. You all lied and pretended that she had a heart attack instead of being run over by dad.
Yeah.
So everyone else knew except from us.
Everyone was happier though, weren't they? Because I was happier thinking that she'd had a heart attack, and then mum brought this up, and we're going to have this conversation on a podcast, and anyone who chooses to listen to this is now going to think that I'm, You didn't drive over intentionally. I did feel pretty terrible, but it was. I think you did actually. You phoned me beforehand, and I had an hour and a half to kind of calm myself down and get over it, because she said, "Can you take the phone off speaker?" And you do realise that Daisy's dead. And I went, "What on earth happened? What have you done to her?" And I think she said, "Yeah, you run her over on the way out." And I did feel pretty. Oh. It is a pretty awful thing to do. Yeah. Especially to a family pet who you've lived with for 12 years and that you quite love.
Animals are amazing though in a family though, because we've got 2 dogs now who I love, who are, I'm not going to say, they're better equipped to living in the countryside than Daisy would have been. They can see, which is a definite bonus as well. Our last dog couldn't see, and she was very sweet, but she couldn't see.
She used to run into walls.
We do have
really, really...
We've got 2 great cats. We've got 4 cats. No, I know, but 2 great cats. They're quite funny sometimes.
I've always loved cats. And when I met Dad, he said he was allergic to cats and we couldn't get a cat.
I'm mentally allergic to cats.
So I thought, well, the way to fix an allergy is to expose them.
Only you would have that kind of therapy where it's like, oh, you're allergic to them. What we're going to do is surround your life by what you're allergic to.
Uh-huh.
It was people like you that put leeches on people. That kind of, in the olden days, it's that kind of logic.
No, it absolutely works.
There was one...
We're going to bleed you because you're allergic to cats.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not the biggest fan of cats. I know there are amazing cats in the world, and everybody who loves cats, they're brilliant people. And of course, cats are lovely. I don't think they like me very much. But I do remember when I got you your cat, it was a real sign of affection because I didn't want to have a cat. I didn't feel that I was grown up enough to take responsibility for a cat.
Nor when the children came.
I got this this cat, and it was lovely. It was really sweet little ginger kitten thing. And I said, you can have a cat on one proviso. It doesn't sleep in the bed.
Mm-hmm.
First night, got into bed, pissed on my pillow, and there it stayed. And Mum just looked at that little patch of wee on my pillow and went, I think you better change that. Snuggled up with her cat, and I just went. I've never had quite the same relationship with any of the 15 cats that we've had to have. We have 4 cats. 4 of anything is too many.
Cats never ever. They only want to be stroked on their terms.
Yeah,
is the truth. They only want to be stroked on their terms.
Every cat has such a bad sense of timing.
Yeah, that as well. No one wants to stroke you when you're purring at 4 o'clock in the morning, or when I'm eating.
My dad, we used to have.
I'm eating. What you really want is a nice close up of my anus.
Let me just display it. Hey, hold on, I'm coming round again.
The truth is about pets in a family is that you have the pets if you're the adult, and children think they have the pets, but they don't because they don't take responsibility for them.
I think it's great for kids to grow up with pets, though, especially apparently animals are really therapeutic if someone's got kind of anxiety or mental health problems. Apparently it is really good.
It's like a real teddy bear. Isn't it, really?
Well, they're the two things that I think are
definitely
really
an emotional
good.
support for me if I'm feeling anxious or a bit low about myself, and I like the dogs.
I think there's loads of advantages with pets, but 2 really big ones is I think it teaches you responsibility, and also it teaches you that life ends. In my opinion, a home isn't really a home until it has a pet. In the first part of today's episode, we discussed anxiety. If you or someone you know is really struggling, there are organisations that can help. Anxiety UK is a national charity offering therapy, resources and a helpline for anyone affected by anxiety. You can find out more at anxietyuk.org.uk. And No Panic is another brilliant UK charity providing support, guidance and a helpline for people struggling with anxiety, panic attacks and OCD. As always, you can find those websites in our show notes.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
If you'd like to submit a topic for us to discuss, please email us. The address is mail@seriouslywithsarahbeeny.co.uk. Seriously was created by me, your host, Sarah Beeny, and our producer, Jonathan Profaska. The show is recorded and edited by Jonathan Profaska and Christian Kay.